Hello, everyone. This is EJ Schultz, news editor at Ad Age, and welcome to the latest installment of our monthly look at purpose marketing hits and misses. As usual, joining me is our regular guest, Thomas Kolster, who is the founder and creative director at Copenhagen-based Goodvertising Agency, which advises companies and organizations on how to turn environmental, societal, and health risks into market opportunities. Hello again, Thomas.
Good to see you, EJ.
All right, let's not waste any time. Let's start with the hits, as we usually do. Our first one comes from French photovoltaic panel provider SolarBox. A new campaign from the agency Fred and FARID imagines King Louis XIV riding a stationary bike to power electronic equipment. The effort plays into the king's nickname. He was apparently known as the Sun King. So in the spots, he serves as sort of a metaphor for sun power. Let's take a look at one of them.
Mesdames et messieurs, le roi soleil.
All right, Thomas, why did you like this one?
I don't know if you learned about the Sun King in school, EJ, but I feel that this is a really good example of how sustainability is becoming more and more commonplace. And that is, when that is happening, I think people sort of go to the creative toolbox and come up with fun little commercial twists. And you know, it's sun, it's easy, it's kind of fun. It's not this doom and gloom stuff that we're used to. I mean, so often we talked about on this podcast that let's take a different twist on it, choose a different tone of voice. I think they do it well. I feel that sort of ease of getting the product, you know, it's almost like ringing that little bell. So I think it does a lot of good for me, and it's fun, you know, it's easy, it's fun.
That seems to be a theme I've noticed with your analysis. You do like kind of more of the lighthearted stuff and not kind of hitting us over the head a lot of times with these kind of serious messages. Is that right?
Yeah, plus I think we live in a time that's quite divisive. I think if you are a brand and you want to sort of speak to both sides of the nation, I think this is a good way of doing it, putting a smile on people's faces and not being too political in what you're trying to achieve with this.
Having said that, our next ad, which is a hit, takes a little bit more serious approach. It comes from GreenPeace, which of course is the environmental activist group. And they, in this next spot, take a shot at Total Energies, which is a giant energy company, which is also a sponsor of the Rugby World Cup. The ad, as we'll see, portrays a stadium being filled with oil. And the whole idea here is to accuse brands of using sporting events to greenwash their businesses. Let's take a look.
The Rugby World Cup 2023, sponsored by Total Energies, is about to get underway. Millions are watching around the world to see the game we've all been waiting for. France versus three-time champions, the All Blacks. And we're off. But wait a minute, what is all this? What kind of move is that from Total Energies? I don't think that's in the rule book. The fans are out of their seats. Unbelievable. Surely this is foul play. Oh, Total Energies is spilling right through the defence on both sides. Oh, that's a nasty tackle. A red card for sure. Oh, this is the dirtiest game I've ever seen. Wow, wow, wow. What is Total Energies even doing here?
Okay, I think you and I have analyzed ads in the past that have kind of used the same kind of oil CGI to make a point. Why did you like this approach?
Oh, you're absolutely right. Yeah, why do I love this one and not the other ones? I think it's an interesting time right now. I think our industry is having a reckoning around fossil fuel in general, and I think there's a lot of conversations right now, for example, around Shell and the Harvest pitch. Obviously, this week is also Climate Week in New York, with Antonio Guterres from State saying that we're right now very close to opening the gates of hell. So not a blockbuster movie I think any of us want to see. What I think this one gets right is, and I iterated this before, it has a very simple ask. So you can, of course, say, do we know what's going to happen? Maybe we do. But I think when it comes to getting people to act on messaging like this, it's still dramatic. It got that simple ask at the very end of it. So at least after watching it, it's not that I'm just sort of sinking down in the armchair and feeling despair. I actually feel a bit of a sense of anger, and what can I in fact do? Yes, fossil fuel companies obviously shouldn't be sponsoring sports events, like they're having a reckoning with art institutions and other things. So I think it's the simplicity of the message, and somehow I also feel that they're getting away with that balancing act between being doom and gloom and still having a bit of a tongue in cheek when they do the storytelling. So I think that it's a balancing act, and I think they get it right this time.
We do have another rugby ad later in the show, so it's a rugby-filled show today. But on to our last hit.
Yeah, or lack of them. For all those rugby fans out there, or lack of them.
So let's go to our last hit. It's in the UK, and it comes from the ad agency Dept, and it's produced by Pretty Bird. This spot promotes eBay's car replacement offering. Let's watch it and then talk about it.
You're built different, breathing new life into broken, taking matters into your own hands, assembling big dreams from the small things, never stopping until you find right part at the right price. That's the eBay way.
So Thomas, you occasionally will surprise me with an ad that I'm like, why is this a purpose ad? So that's my first question for you. Isn't this just them promoting, buying auto parts on eBay? What makes this purposey?
I feel that they sort of, they made that twist that we talked about before that I really like. I think it's at the heart of what eBay does. It's really celebrating all these people who go to the extra length, maybe buying pre-owned stuff or looking for those extra spare parts. So I think it's at the heart of what eBay does and what it does for the community. And I think the ad speaks to that. So sort of celebrating the creators, celebrating the creators' dreams. So I think it's spot on in terms of purpose. It's not talking about eBay themselves, but it's actually talking about the value that it delivers to people. So I think that's what they get right. And watching it, okay, it's not the greatest creator maybe, but I do feel a little bit better about shopping from eBay. I can see you're not a critic. That's also okay.
Well, no, I do like sort of expanding the definition of purpose. It's constantly debated, right, in the ad industry, like what is purpose marketing?
Exactly. And I think it's that shift away from touting what you're good at to actually celebrating what your customers are good at and their dreams and aspirations. And I think eBay does that well in this little commercial.
Very good. Let's move on to our misses. We're going to talk about Apple, and I'm assuming most of our viewers have heard about or seen this next ad. It's gotten a lot of attention in the past several days. Some people love it, some people don't like it, and you're obviously in the latter camp. But it uses the actress Octavia Spencer. She plays Mother Nature, And the whole setup here is she's coming into a boardroom and grilling Apple executives, including CEO Tim Cook, on how the company's plans to be fully carbon neutral by 2030 are coming along. In the ad, of course, Apple successfully defends itself, and this comes as it debuts its first carbon neutral product, the newest Apple Watch. It's a lengthy ad, like 5 minutes, but so let's just watch a little bit of it and then talk about it.
I hope we didn't keep you waiting.
Mother Nature.
Mother Nature, welcome to Apple. How was the weather getting in?
The weather was however I wanted it to be. Let's cut to the chase. In 2020, you promised to bring Apple's entire carbon footprint to zero by 2030. Henry David Thoreau over here said we have a profound opportunity to build a more sustainable future for the planet we share.
I think our 10 o'clock said the same thing.
They all do. All right. This is my third corporate responsibility gig today, so who wants to disappoint me first?
So people can watch the full spot on Ad Age. But fire away, Thomas. What don't you like about this?
Yeah, for those people who have been living underneath a rock the last week and haven't seen that Apple commercial. Yeah, I earlier sort of the hero trap, this idea about putting on the hero's cape and saying, hey, look at us, Apple, we're going to save the world. And there's quite a few things that I don't like about it. First of all, I don't think it's the tone of voice of Apple per se. It's almost taking world bettering advice from a clown. I don't like the whole sort of comedy angle that they're taking on this. And especially since they're actually pointing fingers at a lot of other people and saying, okay, how ridiculous are these 2030, 2040, 2050 commitments? Something I've been talking about a lot as well. But it's almost like by the end of the commercial, the only thing that I'm left with is sort of these bad jokes, this sort of comedy around a lot of stuff that Apple is doing. It's like, look at us, look at what we're doing. And I think this is sort of the primary example of them not talking about some of the difficult things, them not talking about data, them not talking about all these Apple products that we just, endlessly are buying. So I think it's just too sweet a deal. And then going into the comedy genre, I don't like. For me, Apple has always produced some of the best work in our industry and really shown leadership and pushed the boundaries of creativity. I feel here it's almost like an oil company pitching an ad to me, and I don't like it. I think they could have taken a much higher road, and I think they could have been bolder in terms of what they're doing, and also in terms of how they show that leadership and how we can do something as Apple users.
What's your take on companies putting their chief executives in these kinds of ads? We've seen Tim Cook in other ads recently. I guess it depends on the approach, but do you generally favor that or against it, or what's your view on that?
I don't actually mind it. I think it's a good thing because it puts the spotlight on the company, and I think also the risk in terms of investors and others who are now looking to the company for that sort of leadership. So obviously that the CEO is signing off on this obviously matters. But I think this just feels too corporate comms to me, and I know that a lot of Apple users are concerned, and so I don't really buy the pitch with the little more green Apple and this thing about carbon neutral watches. I think they could have done a lot more. I don't know how that tech compares to others, so that could have been a thing they could do if they wanted to showcase how great they are. If you're doing an Apple Watch, how does that compare to other watches out there? How are your products in terms of data usage and other things? How is that comparing? And I think that's the problem. I'm being left with this sentiment that they're talking at me and how great they are. And then it's basically up to me whether I trust it or not. And I don't really feel that after watching it, that it's something that's I'm being left with. Yes, I trust them, rather the jokes are sort of landing on them, in fact.
Okay. Moving on to another high-profile brand, especially in the purpose marketing arena, Dove, which is promoting self-care for men in a new ad that brings together old rugby. There's rugby again. Old rugby rivals who talk about the mental health hardships and other adversity they faced while playing. and sort of bonding around some of these common issues in the ad. It's another long ad, so let's just watch a snippet and then talk about it.
I remember landing on my shoulder and completely feeling it tear. I just had a bit of a meltdown, like I felt like worthless. I felt my value was just as a rugby player, as opposed to a person.
I guess when I was a young captain, I think I was, maybe a little bit hot-headed, maybe a little bit naive, thinking, this is leadership and you got to scream and shout.
As captain, you got to change your stripes for whoever you're talking to. You're never too old to learn. Like, I still make mistakes regularly.
People need to do what makes them feel good to then be able to perform.
So give us your take on this one, Thomas.
I mean, we discussed Dove a lot of times, and I think Dove is one of those pioneering brands in the purpose space that held their head high for more than a decade. I think they just don't do the same thing on the platform for men. I don't think they've found that human truth just yet. I just don't feel it touches me. It's almost like I took a wrong turn when I was buying a deodorant and sort of runs into this AAA meeting by chance. I just don't buy the premise. The premise of Real Beauty. You could keep executing on that. New twists, new things that I learned. I think with this platform, I feel a little bit like, what is it in fact you want from me as a man? What is it that I need to be doing? What insight did you give me? And in that way, I think it's an unfortunate example of a brand that sort of almost like cherry picks topics. What are some of those topics out there? Is that toxic masculinity, as we've seen Gillette has been supporting, or what is it? So I feel it lacks that sort of human truth and ability to connect, which is a shame. I mean, Dove have every right to talk about these issues. I just don't think they got it right this time.
Also, like the Apple ad, it asks a lot of time commitment for the viewer. I mean, this one is like, around 4 minutes. The Apple one is lengthy, multiple minutes. Do you feel like these long ads, I mean, obviously they can be used in cut downs on social and things, but do you feel like these long ads are effective or not? Or what's your take on the length of these things?
To be honest, I think the Dove one was a bit of a waste of time, to be honest. I think you are competing with a lot of other content out there, and I would rather like the effectiveness of something short and sweet, like the Sun King we saw. Don't overdo a lot of this stuff just because it's purpose, just because it's difficult topics. You can still keep it lighthearted. People are still sitting there in front of whatever screen they're sitting in front and going about their daily lives. I think it's tough to leverage a content like this. I think the Apple one, again, the challenge there with length is if you choose 5 minutes, you better have something extremely important to say. And I think basically Apple just went on a rant about how good they were. A long list of achievements. It's like, look at me, look at how good I am, and just didn't really connect either. I think it became more untrustworthy the further in you watched, unfortunately. So short and sweet.
Speaking of short and sweet, let's finish our episode with our last ad. So it's our last myth of the day, and it comes from the UK energy company E.ON, which in a spot from the agency House 337 shows people ironically singing "Time is on our side" while they experience climate calamities all around them. It then plugs some products from this brand, such as solar panels, EV chargers, and heat pumps. Let's watch.
Time is on my side. Is on my side.
Yes, it is. Time is on my side.
And believe me, time is on my side. Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
I said time, time, time.
It's time to act on the climate crisis today, not one day. And E.ON have the solutions to help us all live more sustainably.
All right, Thomas, another ad that relies heavily on visual effects. Why didn't you like this one?
It's almost like we come full circle, right? We started with solar panels. We're going to end with solar panels. We talked about the gates of hell and Antonio Guerreras, and now we got invited into the gates of hell and saw that universe. I don't know. I just don't feel ready to press that push button and buy a solar panel after I watch this. I probably feel like lying down on the couch and crying for about a week.
All right, the world's going to end any minute. Then why? What's the point, right?
Yeah, who cares about a solar panel when the world is going under? Yeah, I mean, it's, again, I think Ian is taking his mouth too full. I mean, come on. I think if people talking about people living under the rock and haven't seen the Apple commercial, I think people are facing up with the reality of climate change right now. We saw what happened in Syria and a lot of these places. I think climate change is real. I think they're using it in not the right way for their advantage, and I think actually it plays themselves a disservice. We still want to inspire people to transition, to see the advantages of solar panels, heat pumps, etc. I don't think the scare tactics is going to help them at all, to be honest.
All right, on that positive note, But Thomas Kolster, thank you again for your time today. My name is EJ Schultz, news editor at Ad Age. And as always, I want to thank our producer, Lauren Chiardio, and invite everyone to keep an eye out next month for our next episode of Purpose Marketing Hits and Misses. We'll catch you next time.